I never intended to stop in Maplewood. The town wasn't a destination. It wasn't even a dot I noticed on the map. I only pulled off the highway because my windshield wipers were failing in a sudden downpour, and I couldn't see 5 feet ahead. The gas light had been on too long anyway. That's how these things begin, I suppose. Accidents, storms, unplanned turns. I didn't realize, pulling off that wet highway into a sleepy town with a single blinking yellow light, that I was about to collide with something far more dangerous than rain: hope. I told people it was for clarity, that I wanted to see the country, but really I was running from silence. My last relationship had ended not with shouting or broken things, but with a quiet goodbye over cold coffee. Her name was Mara. We'd loved each other the way tired people do, carefully but not bravely. When she left, she said, "You don't let anyone in, Caleb." Not really. She wasn't wrong, but it still felt like being left mid-sentence. So I packed what little I had left into the back of my car and started driving with no plan, stopping only when exhaustion forced me to. That's how I ended up in Maplewood. It was early evening by the time the rain lightened, and I found a diner with a faded awning and the words "open" humming in the window like an afterthought. Inside, it was warm and still. Booths with red vinyl seats, a jukebox that hadn't worked in years, the scent of burnt coffee, and something vaguely sweet like cinnamon and nostalgia. And that's where I saw her. She was standing behind the counter, pen tucked behind one ear, wiping down the surface with the kind of care that makes even the ordinary feel sacred. Hair pulled into a loose braid, soft freckles, eyes the color of wet birch bark, gray and alive. She looked up and smiled, not like a stranger, but like someone who's seen enough wandering souls to recognize one when they walk in. "Sit anywhere you like," she said. I slid into a booth by the window. She brought me coffee without asking. "You're not from around here," she said, more observation than question. "Just passing through." "That's what they all say." She didn't push, just smiled that half smile and walked back behind the counter like maybe she knew I needed the silence more than small talk. Her name, I'd find out later, was June. Ironic, because the night I met her, it was the middle of October, and the air smelled like wood smoke and endings. I stayed in town longer than I meant to. Something about Maplewood calmed the noise in my chest. The gas station mechanic said my engine needed more work than expected, and I didn't argue. I rented a room above a bookstore that doubled as a hardware shop, run by an elderly man named Roy, who insisted I call him Pop. And every morning, I returned to the diner. June would greet me the same way. "You survived another night, huh?" And pour my coffee without asking. Some days we talked. Some days we didn't, but always she was there. And somewhere in the quiet of that routine, I began to breathe again. One afternoon, she sat across from me in my booth. It surprised me. She usually moved like a ghost between tables, friendly but guarded. But today she sat, wiping her hands on a dish towel, looking like she'd made a decision she wasn't sure she'd follow through on. "I heard you're staying above Pop's store." I nodded. "He's good people," she said, then added, "I used to live up there." "You live alone now?" She gave a small laugh, not the amused kind, more like you're asking a question you don't know the weight of. "Yeah," she said finally, "I do." She didn't offer more. I didn't press. That's how it went between us. Truth in pieces. The thing about June was she never tried to fill silences. She let them sit, let them stretch, let you lean into them or walk away. That kind of patience is rare. It's also disarming. I found myself telling her things I hadn't said aloud in years, about my failed career as a screenwriter, about my father who used to teach me how to fish but never how to feel, about Mara and how I didn't know if I ever truly loved her or if I just needed to be needed. June listened without judgment. Sometimes her eyes would flicker with understanding, like she knew exactly what it meant to carry something heavy and invisible. She never offered advice, only presence, and sometimes that's more healing than answers. A few weeks in, I asked if she wanted to take a walk with me after her shift. She raised an eyebrow. "You asking me on a date, wanderer?" I smiled. "I'm asking you for your time." That evening, we walked down to the river at the edge of town. The sun was low, the water golden and slow. Leaves rustled in the trees like the world was whispering secrets. "I used to come here as a kid," she said, "before things got complicated." "Things always get complicated," I replied. She looked at me, a question forming, so I added, "But sometimes stillness finds us anyway." She didn't say anything, just looped her arm through mine. That was the first time I touched her, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. We didn't fall in love quickly. It was gradual, unfolding like old paper, revealing soft words beneath hard creases. There were nights we spent by the bookstore heater, sharing tea and stories. Days we worked side by side, fixing a broken booth in the diner or helping Pop repaint his front steps. We weren't perfect. I still flinched at certain kinds of closeness. She still closed off when something hit too near. There were walls, but we stopped pretending we didn't want to climb them. One night we kissed. It wasn't dramatic. No music swelled, no rain poured. She was telling me about a recipe her grandmother used to make, and I leaned forward and kissed her mid-sentence. She didn't stop me. She kissed me back like she'd been waiting for it quietly all along. She told me later she'd been married once. His name was Paul, she said. He died 4 years ago this October. I felt the words settle between us, soft and hard at the same time. "I'm sorry," I said. She nodded. "So am I." She didn't cry, but her voice wavered when she said, "Some mornings I still reach for him in my sleep." I didn't know what to say, so I just took her hand and held it, and she let me. I started writing again, not because I wanted to publish anything, just because I needed to let the words out. June read some of it. She'd sit cross-legged on my floor while I read aloud, nodding now and then, asking questions that helped me go deeper. "You write like someone who's learning to hope again," she said once. "Maybe I am," I replied. She didn't answer, just leaned her head against my shoulder. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't in a long, long time. Peace. But of course, peace doesn't last forever. That winter, I got an email from an old friend in LA, a producer I used to pitch scripts to. He'd read one of my new stories on a small blog I'd started and wanted to talk about adapting it. Said he thought it had legs, that it could be something. For a week, I didn't respond. Then I told June. She was quiet at first. Then, "Do you want to go?" I shrugged. "I don't know." "You do," she said gently. "You're just scared." I looked at her, trying to memorize her face in that moment. The quiet strength, the sadness behind her eyes. "I don't want to lose you," I said. "You won't," she whispered. "You can't lose what's part of you." She kissed me softly, then added, "But don't stay for me. I've had love that held on too tight. I don't want to be that for you." I left in early January. The roads were icy, the trees bare, and my heart felt like a page being torn in half. She packed me a thermos of coffee and a bag of ginger cookies, told me to call her when I got there, told me to write. I asked if she'd ever visit. "Maybe," she said. But we both knew she belonged to this town like roots to soil, and I couldn't ask her to uproot herself from my wandering. So I drove away with her, love folded inside me, like a letter I'd read again and again. That was 11 months ago. The script is in development now. I'm living in a studio apartment in LA with a cactus I keep forgetting to water. The sun shines more here. The streets are louder, but some nights, when I can't sleep, I play an old jazz song and imagine I'm back in that booth, coffee in hand, watching her braid her hair behind the counter. We talk sometimes, not every day, but often enough to remind each other that what we had wasn't a dream. She still signs her letters. "Stay steady, wanderer," and I still sign mine. Still here. Because some love doesn't need a perfect ending. It just needs to be real enough to carry. And what June and I have in the quiet, in the stillness.